Andy Barr joins us now. Congressman, thanks so much for joining us. I know you're in favor of this legislation. I want you to take a listen to something your Republican colleague Chip Roy of Texas said earlier today.
We sent them a product. We liked it in some respects. Could be better in others. The Senate has now made some changes. Some are good, some are bad. Now we got to look at the total product and decide what it's about. It's not take it or leave it. How do you take it or leave it legislating? How about we send it back to them and we say take it or leave it, right? So the Senate doesn't get to be the final say on everything. Got to work this out.
What's your reaction?
Well, I like Chip, and I appreciate his advocacy for fiscal responsibility. I am too, and that's why I think we have to pass the one big beautiful bill. I appreciate him standing up for the House, but at the end of the day, we have to pass this bill, Jake, because if we don't, it's a $4.5 trillion tax increase on the American people. That would result in 6.1 million fewer jobs in this country, a decline in GDP growth of 4%. In other words, a recession. We will never balance the budget or get our fiscal house in order if we are in a recession. What we need, if you really care about the debt and deficit situation, we need to grow this economy so fast that what we owe starts to shrink relative to the overall size of the economy. And that's what this one big beautiful bill is. It's jet fuel or rocket fuel for the economy. And it's promises made, promises kept from a president who campaigned on making the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act permanent, who campaigned on preventing the largest tax increase in American history, who campaigned on no tax for tips, no tax on overtime, no tax for Social Security benefits. These are promises the president is keeping, and Congress needs to recognize that 77 million Americans voted for this agenda, and we need to get it done to make sure we provide the economy the jet fuel that it needs to raise wages for the American people.
Where does the vote tally stand right now? I mean, the Republican leaders have basically stopped time on the floor of the House while you all try to get the requisite votes. I guess assuming 3 people vote against it, you need 216 votes, something like that. Where are you right now? How many votes are you lacking?
Yeah, we have a thin majority for sure, and so we can't lose too many. What I was told just a few minutes ago by the majority leader is that we're making progress. We're getting some uncertain or questionable votes to a hard yes now, and then there's still a few members who are still talking to the White House. So we're not there yet, but we're making good progress. Obviously, leadership is holding this vote open. They think that they can continue to get the votes, and so we'll see what happens. But at the end of the day, there is one powerful force that can bring all these diverse Republicans together, and that's why he's such a powerful leader for our party and for our country, and that's President Donald Trump.
So I think there's about $36 trillion of debt right now. Do I have that right?
You got it.
So this bill will add to the debt. It will add to the debt less than it would perhaps, but then that doesn't take into account the tax cuts expiring. If this bill passes, what will the debt be in 20 years, or in 10 years rather? Do you know?
Well, you got to look at, we didn't get into this problem overnight. I mean, we had $8 trillion of spending in 4 years under Joe Biden. There was bipartisan spending during a national emergency, COVID, and of course years before that, deficit spending. So we got to $36 trillion over time. It's not going to be overnight to solve it. But I can tell you one thing, Jake, we will never balance the budget if we don't grow this economy. Yes, fiscal discipline is important. That's why I appreciate some of my colleagues in the Senate and Chip Roy, for example, advocating for more spending restraint. I'm all for that. But we will never solve the debt and deficit problem if we don't grow the economy. And this legislation, I think, dynamically scored, can absolutely not only not produce deficits, but actually generate revenue. Consider the fact that one conservative estimate says that medium real inflation-adjusted incomes will rise $10,000 as a result of this bill. That means bigger paychecks, which means more revenue, not because of higher taxes, but because Americans are more prosperous, and so the tax base is larger. The CBO and some of these static scores of this bill that predict big deficits, they don't take that into account, and so they're really rooted in economic fantasy. What we need to recognize is that this bill will generate the kind of robust economic growth, not only that the American people need and deserve to get their household finances in order for them to have the dream of home ownership or build a business, but also for the debt crisis. We need growth so that what we owe starts to shrink relative to the overall size of the economy, which has to grow massively.
Right. But I guess you know the answer to the question that in 10 years there's going to be $20 trillion more in debt with this bill.
No, I disagree with that.
You disagree with that assessment, right? Because you think the pro-growth.
It depends on a lot of policies between now and then. I mean, I certainly support a lot of additional reforms down the road that would rein in our spending programs and our spending addiction. And I support even more pro-growth policies that will produce even more robust economic growth. I think the tax cuts on top of better, more reciprocal trade deals that open up export markets, on top of the deregulation project, on top of energy dominance. And by the way, this bill has a lot of streamlining of permitting for more energy production in this bill. With all of those policies together, in addition to the tax cuts,
right?
You're talking about the kind of growth that we have to have in order to get our fiscal house in order.
Right. But before COVID hit, I mean, Trump was racking up annual deficits of $779 billion a year, $984 billion a year. That's with the tax cuts. And the first time.
And of course, COVID was a big factor. And then we
but this is before COVID.
Spending.
Before COVID, I mean.
Yeah, so look, the bottom line is we know we have to rein in spending. And by the way, this bill, despite the static score of a deficit-producing legislation, this is the largest spending cut bill in history. And in fact, some critics of this bill say we cut too much spending. So it's which one is it? The bottom line is, if you dynamically score the bill, if you actually take into account the reality of the growth that this will produce, pulling forward all of that capital expenditures, the Made in America provision that says you can 100% expense investment in new manufacturing and new agriculture, or the bonus depreciation provision, or a permanent increase in the tax cut for Main Street small businesses, that's going to pull forward massive amounts of investment. And a realistic assessment of the economic effects of this bill is that it will massively produce to the tune of 14.5% increase in investment. Again, that means wages increasing in real inflation-adjusted terms by $10,000. So for all your viewers out there, Democrat, Independent, and Republican, could you use another $10,000 in your paycheck next year? That's what we're talking about. That's the power of these provisions, and so I just don't believe these economic scores that just dollar for dollar say if you cut taxes $1, you'll get $1 of reduction in revenue. That's not how it works in the real world. That's junk economics.
Republican Congressman Andy Barr of the great Commonwealth of Kentucky, thanks so much. Appreciate your time, sir. Have a great 4th.
Thank you. You too.
How's this for twist?